Be watchful and be alert, says Mark in the Gospel, quoting Jesus to his disciples. I like this reading on this first Sunday of Advent when it uses that reading from Mark, because it reminds me of a time when I read this in the cathedral in Seattle. And a child from my particular parish came up afterwards and said, "Father, what is alert?" It says, "Be watchful, but be alert." So we wanted to know what alert was. All of us are alerts today. We're cautioned to be watchful and become alerts. In this season of Advent, we are waiting for something. We know what's coming, but the liturgical year of the church has us for 4 weeks, 4 Sundays before Christmas, wait and expecting the birth of the Christ child. Not only are we expecting something and waiting for something, watching for something and being alert for something, we're also sort of looking forward to something. Human beings are always searching for something. We're searching for something else or for someone else. Human beings have an innate sense of there being an otherness up there somewhere. That there be something greater than we are, with which we want to connect. All human beings have had this innate sense. And I call it the image of God that dwells within us. The need and the desire to connect with the Creator. And all religions have started from that point, that human beings have a natural inclination to want to connect with the Creator, however they envision that. And they're human beings, just as all of us as well, are searching for that connection. Just as we search, as I said, for something or someone else. We search for things all the time that we're looking for. We don't know why sometimes they disappear. Most of the time they're always right where we left them. Bishop called me yesterday and said, "Do you know where my crozier is?" You know what a crozier is? It's a bishop's staff. It's shaped like a shepherd's crook. Somehow or other that crozier had moved around the county and was located somewhere else. The bishop could not find it. And yet later in the day when I called, he said, "Bishop, I don't know where your crozier is. Did you leave it in the closet or in the cabinet?" "No, guess what? I found it." It's right there in his own closet. It was always there all the time, and yet he was searching for it, searching for something, wanting to find it. We search for other things too. Lots of small things. Our keys to our car. We search for a parking space frequently when we arrive at church on Sundays. But we also look for bigger things, deeper things. We look for people and places and relationships that we hope will fulfill us, bring us joy and grant us peace. We're always searching for that because not only do we have the innate sense of seeking God and knowing that we want to be connected with God, we also want to be connected with others and be in relationship with them, and have a sense of fulfillment and peace in our relationships with one another. That is often elusive to find. Frequently, during the prayers of the people, the prayers of the faithful, we pray for those who are searching for a job. But also more than a job, for those who are searching for a job that gives them a sense of purpose and value and security that comes with a job that will bring that. Some people are searching for wisdom. But also more than just an education for wisdom, but for a sense of truth and goodness and direction in life. And as I said, many people are searching for relationships. All of us are. We're by nature social beings. We want to be connected with others. But searching also for relationships, more than just searching for Mr. or Mrs. Right. We want a sense of fulfillment in our relationships and a flourishing of love and being loved. We're all searching for someone or something else all the time. But as I said, experience teaches us that finding what we're searching for is often very difficult because we can't seem to quite get hold of it. We want to find that longed-for thing or that person that will ultimately fulfill us. But life is transient. Life is like it is. Life is full of difficulties and relationships and business and school and everything about us. Well, it seems that we can never quite arrive where we think we ought to be and want to be. So we have this gospel today. Jesus tells his disciples to stay awake. And this admonition comes at the end of a long discourse by Jesus about the end times, the apocalypse. And so apocalyptic language is used. He and his disciples have left the temple, and he told them that someday the temple would be thrown down and no stone would be left upon another. And then the disciples, of course, naturally ask, when is this going to happen? And he responds by telling them in apocalyptic words, signs that will be like the sun being darkened and stars falling from the heavens. Apocalyptic language is kind of confusing. It's metaphorical. It's complex. But in the midst of it, what Jesus is teaching and saying is that there's an assurance that someday the Son of Man will return to set everything right. And that's what we celebrate during Advent, that we know that he is coming. We expect to go through the whole history of the birth of the Son of God at the Christmas season. And these 4 weeks prior to that are preparation to once again live into that history. But this waiting and expecting and searching and looking for something that we have lost or we want to find sometimes turns out to be good news and bad news for others. So we need to prepare, and that's what Advent gives us, is a time to prepare for the coming of the good news. The bad news is if we're not ready, if we haven't prepared ourselves in a lifetime of living and teaching and being Christ in the world, in relationships with others. Being forgiving, being loving, being concerned, the way Jesus was with everyone that he met. If we're not doing that, we're not ready. And that's what keeps us longing for more. Longing for connection with God, longing for truth in life, longing for meaning in our own lives and in the lives of the people around us. So Jesus says, keep awake, be alert, keep looking for the true Lord who will bring all things to fulfillment. There are lots of pretenders. There's lots of would-be messiahs in the world. They keep coming all the time, but they offer false hope and frequently and most often let everyone down. So we are reminded by Jesus in this gospel today to be ready and look for the true God in our lives. Be ready when the Master returns to the household, the Lord of heaven and earth, and his only Son, Jesus Christ. So we keep awake, we expect, and we're alert that someday he will come. So we are looking for today to receive the basic message that we're looking for the fulfillment of God in our lives, that fulfills all our relationships, all our ways of living, all our soul's delight in God. So the good news today, the good news for today, is that while we are searching for God, and searching for fulfillment in life, searching for connection with others, searching for right relationships, longing for it, failing at it, often damaging it, is the fact that we don't need to search for God as deeply quickly as we think we have to, or do what we have to do to make him show up. Because guess what? God has already found us. God is not searching for us. God has found us and is always present. The enunciation of the name of the Christ child that comes in the world, one of his titles is Emmanuel. God with us. God with us. God has found us and is ever present. We don't need to search because he's there. It is only we who wait and think we have to keep searching instead of opening ourselves, looking deep inside of ourselves, and knowing that God is present in every situation in life. And so the story of Advent is that God has come to us, is coming to us, and that God has already found us. He's already here and present in the lives of this community, of this church, and the people we love, and the world about us. God is already here. God will meet us in the coming of a Christ child. God will come into our hearts and remain and dwell there. And by our daily living of our lives, we've already been found and loved by God, who is with us always, even to the end of the ages. Emmanuel. We only need to open ourselves to what Jesus taught and open our hearts to the others around us. And we will see God, and God will be there with us. I read a story recently about ministers traveling the world. And this pastor, whose name was Davies, Elam Davies, was pastor of the Fourth Presbyterian Church in Chicago. And he was touring with his wife, England, Wales, Ireland. And they went to the coast of Wales. And they went out to see a particular geographic form there. It's a huge rock. And the rock was called the Great Orme. Ever heard of it? No one's been to Wales? Good, and I'm remembering most of the story, so I don't want to flub up anywhere. The Great Orme, as Pastor Davies described in his Book of Travels, is this giant rock right at the seaside on the coastline of Wales. And people from nearby villages often gather there at sunset and climb up on the rock and watch the sun set over the horizon in the west. And if you've ever watched the sunsets from a mountain or at the seashore or looked for the green flash or seen clouds in the sky and it sets with red and blues and grays and all those beautiful colors, that's what the folks who go to the Great Orme on the sea coast of Wales desire to see when the sun sets. And Pastor Davies and his wife were sitting on the rock and watching the sun drop into the sea. And there were beautiful colors in the sky, strands of blue and gold and red. The whole horizon turned into a beautiful kaleidoscope of color. You know, sometimes when you're in the park in the evening or during the day and you look up and the sun is streaming through the clouds and all of a sudden you have a sense that God is present and God is greater than you are and God is there all the time. And this is the sense that the people get when they see the sunset from the Great Orme. Well, Pastor Davies tells that he and his wife were sitting there on the Great Orme, this huge rock, and they noticed in the parking lot nearby an old beat-up car came into the parking lot and parked right near their own car. And in the car was an elderly couple in their 80s, they believed. They sat in the car and watched as the sun started to go down and approach the water's edge. And in the car, they noticed there was a young man in the back seat. And the young man appeared to be sleeping. And just about the time that the sun began to sink over the horizon and the colors started to change, the old man and the old woman got out of their car and opened the back door and brought this young man out, who appeared to be very disabled. He didn't move very well, and they had to pick him up and place him in a chair. They sat him in a wheelchair and moved as close to the great arm as they could, because they couldn't go up the path to the rock with the chair. But they sat down with their son, looking out over the horizon at the sun as it set. And the young man was bent over in his chair and leaned to one side. And just as the sun began to set and the colors became the most beautiful, the old woman and the old man lifted their son in his wheelchair, sat him up straight, turned his head up, and faced it towards the setting sun. And at the moment the sun was its most brilliant, and the colors were the most deep, and the sun almost disappeared over the horizon, the young man's expression changed to joy, and a smile broke across his face, and his mother kissed him, and his father embraced him. And the presence of God was known to them. And even those who sat on the great orm and never looked back and saw the young man and his aged father and mother, seeing and knowing the presence of God. That is a secret of Advent. God is with us, always. We only have to look, be alert, be watchful. In the season of hope, prepare yourselves, my brothers and sisters, for the coming of the Christ child once again. But always be aware that you are in this life to be watchful, to be open, and know that God is always present. In his most holy name.
Amen.
Amen.